the original source material and where this idea came from, I understand it was inspired loosely by a Ruth Rendell story.
Short story.
Short story.
Yes.
And she's obviously a British writer who's attracted other adaptations by Chabrol, by Almodovar, all very different, as is yours. Where did when did you come across the short story, and how divergent from it is your film?
Actually, I read the short story 20 years ago, and I loved it. And I tried at this time to do a short film about it, to do an adaptation very close to the short story. But I didn't find the money, and I didn't find the actor to play the part of Virginia. So I gave up, and I did another short film called Summer Dress. Was something to do with cross-dressing too. But I had still in mind the story, and last year I thought it could be interesting to try to do an adaptation for a feature. And because the story is very short, it's just 10 pages, I had to add many things. In the short story, the end is quite different, because it ends with the murder of Virginia by Claire. She kills him. And for me it was impossible to end the film like that, because I wanted to make a love story and to have an happy end for the characters. So I changed all the end, and at the start of the story there was not the story of the death of the girlfriend. So it was another ad.
So you touched on not being able to find the actors for the earlier short. Here you have, I think, two absolutely stunning central performances. And were you writing with them in mind, or did they come to the project later?
No, I had nobody in mind. Actually, I had an English actor in mind. I had Ewan McGregor in mind. Now, the first idea
Who also looks good in a frock.
The first idea was to make the film in English. And so I began to work with Tanya Segachian and Sasha Ailes, English producer and writer. And I realized it was maybe too complicated for me to make it in English, so I decided to make it in France. And during the writing, we had a lot of protests in France against the gay wedding, and a lot of conservative people. So I thought it could be interesting to make it in French. So I make it in French. And yes, you asked me about Romain Duris.
Well,
so Romain Duris, it came after. I did a lot of tests with many French actors. I put them some wigs, some makeup to see who could be a beautiful girl. And actually nobody was a beautiful girl. So I was a little bit despair. But I had read that Romain, it was one of his dreams to play a woman. So I asked him if he wanted to play a girl. And he was very excited about it. And it was a real pleasure to work with him.
What sort of development process did you go through with him for the part?
Just makeup, wigs, costume. It was just about that. But it was very touching, because he was like a child. He was very innocent about that. It was not perverse at all. It was very funny, and that's what I wanted. But it's something light. I didn't want something too dramatic. And I saw in his eyes he was like a child playing with his sister. I don't know. So it was quite funny.
And Anaïs, who is, I just think, magnificent in this.
Yes.
And obviously it's a very delicate performance in many ways,
yes,
because the rhythm and the changing of her desires is really...
She's the lead character of the film for
That's
me.
right, yeah.
It was very important, because all the story is across her eyes. So it was important to find the right person. She's not very famous in France, but I had noticed her in many films. Very often in second role, je sais pas comment on dit.
Not a lead part, a second role.
Yeah, supporting role.
And I needed someone, because she's very silent, I needed someone who has a very strong face and strong eyes. You can see all the story on her eyes, so it was important to have someone like this. So I did some tests with Romain. The chemistry between the two worked very well.
Can I ask you also about the, the approach to well, I think the sort of matching scenes at the beginning and the end of the preparation in the wedding gown of the bride who's about to be buried,
Yes.
and then the bringing back to life, these scenes are so beautifully realized.
The idea was not to make a realistic movie. It was, for me, it was important to, in the style of the film, to make as it was a fairy tale. You know, at the end, they, I don't know if you say that in English. Ils se marièrent et eurent beaucoup d'enfants. They get married and they...
And they had a lot of children.
Yes, that's what I wanted. So I wanted to use the codes, les codes?
The codes.
The codes of the fairy tale. So it was important, yes, to play with that in the mise en scène.
For me personally, it was incredibly difficult writing the program note for this film because there was no way I wanted to give away the surprise. And it's very challenging, I think, to take a film like this out to audience because you really don't want them to read anything in advance that spoils this moment. Was that something you had in mind, or...?
Yes, I would love that people could arrive totally virgin in front of the film. But I know it's impossible today with internet, with new communication. And after, it happens after 10 minutes in the film, or 15 minutes maybe. So it's not so, you know, the idea for the distributor in France, for the marketing, is not to show the face of Romain Duris as a woman. You know, on the poster you see just his back. Which is quite complicated because Romain Duris is a big star in France. So just to show his bag. And in the trailer, we don't see her as a Virginia too. But I think it's a way to tease people, and I hope people will be excited to see him, to pay to see him as a woman. For me, it's not a problem to laugh. I think you don't laugh against the character, but with the characters, which means you can empathize with them. And actually, the situation can be ridiculous sometimes. I think in the way he's trying to become a woman, it's not obvious for a man. So I wanted to assume this part of comedy in the film. You know, I didn't want to make too dramatic movie. I wanted to show there is a real pleasure. And there is something very playful to try to wear female clothes. So I was not there during the screening, but I know in France people love too. But for me, it's not a problem. I didn't want to load the character. Do you say? Character, yes, because you know he's a very sweet man. He doesn't know the reality of the situation because his wife is lying to him, so he doesn't know. And I think he will be very open-minded. You know, maybe he won't be shocked if he'll know the reality of the situation. But I think which is interesting is why Claire is lying to him, why she doesn't want to tell him what she's living with this new girlfriend. That means something. And for me, it's because she's not sure of what she is living, of her desire. And for the character of Gilles, I think he tries to do his best, but he doesn't know the situation. So it's okay? Yes? Okay.
There's also that very sort of gorgeous undertow that her desire is actually always a desire for Laura. And Laura.
Yes, Laura.
And that somehow it's her husband that illuminates that for her towards the end when he says it can't be about her anymore, now it has to be about David.
Yes.
So to me that's also really an interesting aspect to his
maybe
character.
more clever than we think.
Exactly.
Actually, when I did the first adaptation for a short film, it was very closed. It was very faithful to the short story. But 20 years after, I've changed a lot. So I think now it's closer to what I am. I think if I would have done the film 20 years ago, it would have been totally different. In what way? It's a very personal question.
I think the film, not you.
I think, you know, that's what I said at the beginning. You know, I wanted to tell a love story. I wanted to make something very human. And I didn't want to end the story with a murder, because the short story is really about repressed desire. And when you read a short story, you can imagine that Claire doesn't assume she's a lesbian, because she really hates men. That's why she kills David. And it's really not what I wanted to tell today, actually. Who is the most neurotic, I think. I think I'm closer to Claire, because Claire is the one who helps Virginia, David to become Virginia. And I think it's like a fantasy. I think it's a way for her to faire renaître Laura.
To make her reborn.
Laura.
To make Laura
Reborn.
reborn,
Yes.
yeah, born again.
So I think, and she's like the director, you know. She's the one directing Romain Duris to become an actress. So maybe I think it's the character I'm the most close.